There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mental Health Warriors. Today, we're talking about connecting to your intuitive inner voice. Let's kick off the show. And we're back. Hey, everybody. We've got Nick and Dr. Gilly and myself, Ashley, the self-care mama. How is everybody doing?
Great. Yeah, and I've had a really good, really productive week. And I've got my son arriving tomorrow for a week, and I feel because I've had a productive, busy week, I can relax and have a bit of time off. So good nice. For me.
Sweet. Dr. Gilly, how's your week going?
Yeah, it's good. It's like, as a psychologist, I have some weeks that are very busy and other weeks that are quiet, and this was a quiet week, but I'm not complaining.
Is that one of those words that are like taboo to speak? Like, oh, it's such a quiet day, or it's slow, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's like all of this stuff happens.
I know. Yeah. I definitely feel that.
Oh, goodness. Well, Adam will not be joining us today. He had a family engagement that he was going to be partaking with, but we are talking about connecting to your intuitive inner voice. So, a question that I would like to ask the both of you is, when have you ignored your intuition and what was the outcome?
I think I have a good example for this. And I'm a believer that intuition is legitimate, that there is such a thing as, there's validity to gut feelings, and there's some research supporting that too. But I also think that we're human, and so we can definitely have false alarms. And I've had a couple of those experiences, and I'm only, I think, remembering them now because I use them as examples in therapy. And so I'll give the example of the more recent one, where my family, like my husband and my two kids, were flying to New York. My husband was going to drop them off with his parents so they could spend some time, with the grandparents in the Hamptons. And my husband and I could spend time, the two of us, at home. And before they left, I remember I had clients like right after they were leaving. So I was getting ready for the day and they were heading out. And suddenly it's like this sense, just came over me. And I just felt like in my mind they were going to get into a plane crash or something horrible was going to happen to them. It was just this horrible, just like this horrible gut feeling, like the sense that something bad was going to happen. And so I was having a mini panic attack. I wouldn't say I've ever had a full-blown panic attack. It's not something I've struggled with in the past, thank God, because I know those are horrible. And so I started crying because I was freaking out a little bit. And so I was telling my husband, I was like, I know it's probably just my brain playing a trick on me, but I just feel like something bad is going to happen. And I feel like I don't want you to go, but also I can't make you stay because this could just be a feeling. And he said to me, don't worry about it. Everything is going to be okay. I'm going to text you when I get on the plane. I'm going to text you when we get off. The kids are going to go to Nana and Poppy and everything will be fine. And I was like, okay, like half believing him because how do you know versus how do I know? Like, we don't know really what's in the future. And I just kind of continued with my routine, saw my client and I didn't like compulsively check my phone, but every hour or so, I would check my phone and everything went fine. You know, it was exactly as he said. And so, yeah, I use that as an example just to explain that sometimes we feel something intensely, and it's this kind of looming sense of something horrible is going to happen. And just because we feel that and we think it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to come true. And that's how, you know, anxiety disorders usually manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thoughts. I mean, I think there's definitely. I don't know if there's a book, Chimp Paradox. I think that talked a little bit about instinct and how going back to prehistoric times, we had to rely on an instinct to make decisions instantly. When we were presented to a danger, if we didn't decide immediately if it's a threat or not, whether we fight or flight, our survival depended on it. So cavemen lived on instinct, and intuition to survive. But I think nowadays, we don't have that same general need to make instant decisions. So we've moved towards a more of an evaluative way, and a lot of us have lost, I think, that reliance on instinct and our intuition. But there's been a lot of studies about successful people and CEOs, and one of the traits is ability to make decisions quickly. And I think a lot of the time, we have an instinctive thought. I instinctively think this is the right thing to do. We often, I would certainly talk about myself, think, well, is it though? We sort of reason it out and look at it more logically. I think, it's human nature to think, well, make sure this right decision, particularly big decisions, and not always just follow our gut instinct. And I know, certainly, I've always been that way. Where when making decisions, I carefully evaluate the pros and cons, and and look at it really carefully before making a decision. But I think definitely I've been trying to move towards following my instinct and my intuition a bit more, so I don't miss opportunities. So I can be a bit more, follow my instinct and take advantage of opportunities. I mean, I think one example perhaps is where always been, always throughout my whole life been interested in the sort of coaching, and I studied sort of NLP and a lot of related some psychology when I was younger, and got and then but I never thought I had and instinctively my intuition was that's what I wanted to do, and I never followed it through. I thought it wasn't the right thing for me. Could I do it? And then I ended up doing it, mentoring and coaching people a lot in certain areas of my life, at work and the Toastmasters clubs with new people who are unconfident, and mentoring them and getting good feedback. I realized, well, actually, there's sort of, the evidence is there that actually, I can do this and I'm quite good at it. So then I made a decision to study coaching and move down that path. But I think if I'd actually gone on my instinct, my intuition, about a long time ago, this is something I wanted to do and should do. So I think there's a lot to be said for just following our gut instinct, to following our intuition and our we can overanalyze things, I think, sometimes. What do you think, Ashley? What's your experience with using intuition?
In the times that I've used my intuition on things, I think it comes down to certain relationships in life. For a very long time, I have been the type of person that, and it does sound utterly terrible, but if you break my trust and you do me dirty, I'm not going to trust you again. I'm not going to all of a sudden just like welcome you with open arms type of a thing. And if time passes where it's like, okay, maybe, just maybe I'll give you another shot type thing. Or there's times where my husband has mended a relationship and I err more on the side of caution, where I'm like, can you trust them? Is this going to go the same way like it did before? And I almost become very like pessimistic, because I'm like, something is like the antennas are going off, and it's like, and then all of a sudden the same thing happens again. And I'm like, oh, I wish I would have trusted that intuition. So I think it really, for me, is a lot of times with relationships. Like, there was a reason I kept you at a distance, and now you just proved that point yet again. But I think it can also be where, for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm called to forgive people. So it's like, okay, well, let's give this another shot type of a deal. But then again, if it happens again, then it's like, sorry, like, you've crossed and broken the trust multiple times. I'm no longer going to give you another opportunity to do that. While I can forgive you for your mistake and whatever, but at the end of the day, I don't need you in my life. Like, that's just kind of how I am. And whether you want to say that's grudge holding or, you know, keeping people at a distance, putting walls up, I don't know. But it's just that it's that intuition, that female intuition. Like, I feel we have a stronger intuition when it comes to reading people sometimes. And yes, it can be wrong. Or intuitions about our children, especially like when something seems off. And I don't know, I think that was just instilled within us more than, I guess, the male species. Not saying that men don't have it, but I feel like women have something additional for
There's
us.
research that supports what you're saying, by the way. Sorry, Nick.
No, that's fine. I don't. Maybe men have it a little bit, but you might have it more.
She's not pulling this out of her ass. Like, it's a real phenomenon.
Yeah. So I don't know. And like, is there areas that you feel like maybe you should have like trusted your gut instinct versus seeking validation from somebody else? Like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, but can you confirm this for me? Type of a thing, versus us just honoring and trusting, like, we know exactly what we need or our families need, or just that intuition the first time around.
I mean, I think with intuition, I mean, you know, I think it's almost like a sixth sense, in that sense that you could call it. You know, sometimes it's just that feeling that something's not quite right, or the other way around. But you know, this is definitely, I don't know how to explain it, but this is the right thing for me to do in the situation. Or you know, you may feel uncomfortable and something, you can't quite explain it, but you know this is not the right place to work, or you're not comfortable with someone. I think that, and that's the challenge. I think, you know, if sometimes following your intuition, it's just is that sort of just that feeling, you know, almost like gut feeling that, you know, this is not the right situation, or you're not something's, like you said earlier, something's up. I don't know what it is, but something's up with, you know, it could be your child or friend. There's something up. I know they're not saying anything. They're not telling me. They say everything's all okay, but I know something not. And I think that is your intuition. But the challenges of sometimes I you know, in those situations is it's not always, until, you know, it's not always clear, you know, why, if you have an intuition that you're not comfortable at doing a certain job or with someone, it's not always clear why that is. That obviously can surface after time. So like you said about validation, you might then say, or in my experience, you say to a friend, well, what do you think? You know, I've got this, I'm not comfortable in it. You know, I think someone, you know, this person, there's something going on, not sure, what do you think? So we look for, I think it's automatically look for validation. And definitely, yeah, no, I do that a lot. I often have feelings about things, but, you know, I'll say to someone else, you know, what do you think? You know, is it just me? I think, you know, so that you know that, yeah, you know, it's it. So I think that's sort of.
That is interesting. It brought a memory to me too, where, you know, I went through something similar where it was a complicated situation at a job, and I just had, it was like this sense, you know, and I just carried it, and I would bring it up to my husband. You know, he's the only person I would really kind of talk to about it. And he agreed that he was like, yeah, this seems weird, but it's not worth quitting over, you know, like, you know, just try to do this, or, you know, try to smooth things over. And then, you know, it got to a point where I was like, I don't know anymore. So I called my friend, my best friend who knows me the best. Yeah. And I was like, can I just read this email to you? And she was like, yeah, go ahead. And I read it to her, and she was like, Gilly, you have to quit. Um, like just like that. That was it. She was like, Gilly, you have to quit. And she was like, go look for jobs right now. So I said, really? Okay. I hung up. I started looking for jobs. And then it turned out 2 days later, I needed a job. Like, it, you know, it really got bad, and it got, I
So
write about it
validated
in my
though.
book.
It validated so that original, you know, feeling
Yes.
for, you know, yeah, it's the right one. That's interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes those situations are am I crazy? Like, are you seeing the same things I'm seeing? You know, where then it's like, okay, what are the pros and cons here type of a deal? Or like you said, Nick, before, you break it out in a pros and cons list, but then you're like, yeah, there's more cons to this situation than there are pros. I need to just get up and go. Like, this is, and then it's almost like your own self-validation coupled with validation from somebody else, right? Do you, either of you, find that there is an area in your life that you feel like you're supposed to take a leap into something, but yet it doesn't make sense? So then you kind of just hold it. We're like, I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, of me, myself, definitely. I mean, there's lots of areas of my life where I mean, it reflects who I am. I'm very someone, like I said, who would analyze and try and be logical about things, but I'm trying to take the opposite approach. But I think certainly in my career business path, I think, you know, following, you know, I've tried to always follow, you know, looking back my younger days, what I thought would be the right thing to do logically, but actually, you know, what's the right thing to do for me, you know, as in, you know, the one, it's a bit more perhaps risk in some ways, but more doing what I'm passionate about, you know, is if that's actually the right thing. So I think definitely as one example for me, doing what's right and following my intuition. Perhaps there's more risk in that, but actually, if that's the right thing, that's the right journey to take. I mean, I think that you know, we like to think we're very logical, intelligent beings, but I think we still, you know, humans, we're still very driven by those sort of our decisions mostly are made by instinct, and a lot of our, you know, way of thinking, you know, it's as an example of saying about decision making, particularly buying things, is that we buy an emotion then justify in logic. So, you know, when we go shopping, if we will buy something based on its emotive appeal, and that can be on different, you know, different. Obviously, what appeals to us is different, men and women and individual. But if something makes us feel good, and when we see it, and we can see how it will make us feel good by buying it. Even if logically we can't afford it, if logically we don't need it, but we think, yeah, that's amazing. I would so want to, you know, you can imagine yourself wearing that thing or using it. We'll buy it because that motive appeal, and then we'll justify it. Oh, well, actually, you know, later you'll say, oh, I know it's expensive, but it's investment. You know, you'll justify it to yourself or to your partner. And I think that I love that thought, because that reflects that actually we may say we're logical, but most of our decision making is done in emotion. You know, we are emotional people, and I think that links to our, you know, our gut instinct, you know, that and the being touched on intuition is that I think actually that's something that, you know, we need to perhaps it's important to be in touch with, because you know, you can draw off these lists and pros and cons when making a decision, but most of the time we say, yeah, logically there's more things in the pro side to do this, but actually my gut instinct is not the right decision still. So often we can draw up these lists, but then at the end, after we draw up a list, we ignore it and make a decision otherwise. So, yeah.
So what you're saying boils us down to relatively simple creatures, right? Who kind of act on instinct or emotion. We buy this thing that makes us feel good. Now I'm going to show the other side of that, where, you know, and I'll start that by asking, like, where does intuition come from? Like, is it limited to the brain, or, you know, could it have some kind of, you know, connection to consciousness, like more globally? You know, there's theories about more of like a unified consciousness. Maybe, you know, people share some awareness. So some of what other people know is what you know. And you can tap into that in some way. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a fantastic question. And I think it's a great question. I mean, I definitely think it definitely, yeah, could be linked to something wider. And I suppose it's, you know, is it a culture related? Do people in some cultures, you know, use intuition more than other cultures which don't? Is it, you know, does culture have an effect? You know, the way I think there probably could be some cultures where, if they're more, some culture more religious or spiritual, you know, or maybe, I don't know, look at things differently. Maybe they're using intuition more than other ones, which there could be that aspect. So
Yeah.
I think it's
so there's research, and I think there's a book too called by Rupert Sheldrake called "The Sense of Being Stared At." And basically, it's, you know, when you're like sitting somewhere and you're like, I feel like someone's looking at me, and then you turn around and it's like someone who like turns their head. And basically, it's like people have this ability to sense when someone's watching them, when they're not looking at that other person. And that's
yes.
intuitive. And also, how do you explain that? You know, if you're not, you know, considering the possibility that maybe we share some degree or level of consciousness, you know, between, I don't know how else it would be. How would you know?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'll let Ashley give her thoughts. I mean, I suppose it's, yeah, when people, when, I don't know, you said a phone rings and you thought, you know, as an example, but you think, oh, you know, you expect the phone to ring and it rings. You know, we all have those little moments where something funny, something happened. You think, you know, you almost predict it's going to happen, and it happens. You think, oh wow, I knew. I thought, yeah, is.
And then this is even.
What do you think?
Go ahead, Dr. Gilly.
Yeah, sorry. There's one more thing I want to add, and then we can comment on both of those. So there's the sense of being stared at, and then this is also really cool. There's also like similar research on pets and the pet owners, and basically, like, there were cameras installed in the homes, and then the pet owners. There's more, yes, but this is really cool, so I have to share. The pet owners go to work, and they're given like a device, like a beeper or whatever, that like dings when it's time for them to go home. And it's a randomly chosen time. And so the owners go to work, they have their beeper, and then if it goes off at 3 p.m., they start heading home. And they film the pets, the dogs and the cats. And what they find is, especially for dogs, but it was also significant for cats, that as soon as, like, even before, like in the seconds before the beeper would even go off, you know, like the beeper would go off and then the person would think, oh, time to go home. The dog would run to the door or go sit by the window and start waiting. And it was at a random time. It's not like the dog has its own, you know, internal clock, and at 3 p.m. every day it goes to the door. Could have been at 2, could have been at 3, could have been at 4. But it was when the owner was dinged, then the pet would go and wait for the owner, and their behavior changed.
Sure.
And so that is also, it's similar. You know, it's not, maybe not limited, you know, to people. It could also be relevant to between, you know, any living things.
Yeah. I think my dogs definitely have an internal clock. Like they know when it's dinner time or it's breakfast time. Like, hey, like it's time for you to feed me now. And now I'm going to bark and I'm going to be at your feet and I'm going to get my bowl. Like all the things. Like I feel like dogs are just, they're a whole nother breed. But so for me, it's like that intuition, I would say, is like if you are a believer of God or some sort of higher power, you know that there is like something instilled within you. But then there's also the psychology of it where it's that subconscious, like you said, Dr. Gilly, like something is there that's telling you like the right or wrong, or this situation is not so good, or this one is okay. I think simply based off of like memories or patterns or things that have happened throughout our life where it imprints within our brain. So then when that specific situation or something very similar comes back up, then it is like dinging the bell in the back of your head. But is there also the question of like the brain gut access, you know, and how the gut talks to the brain?
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's a mix of a lot of things. I think that makes that intuition and what develops that. And it's again, a lot of times the difference between the right and the wrong. You know, it's not even so much like, oh, this gives me bad vibes or this is a little unsettling. It's when we weigh it too, I think, against, is this right or wrong? You know, where is this eventually going to lead me? And then you're almost, yes, analyzing it, and you can overanalyze and all of the things, but it's, where is this going to take me? Is this going to take me down the path of where my goal is, or is this going to take me down a completely different path where it's going to push me away from my goal? So I think it's almost like a, what is that? Like the weights and the measurement type system kind of a thing, like the scale. Where is it going to lead me? And where is it not going to lead me type of a thing? I don't know. That's all I got. Let's see. I have my list of questions here because Adam didn't give me anything for today. And if he's still in the comments, he's gonna be like, why'd you throw me under the bus? Well, because you weren't here. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a good question. What daily habits will keep you connected to your inner compass when life gets noisy? Don't everybody speak at once.
I'll let Nick, you go first, and then I have.
Yeah, I suppose for me is maybe what is my vision, you know, what is my goals, you know, what do I want to, you know, and what are my values, and what, you know, is everything I do aligned to that? So I guess my vision is my long-term plan for what I want to achieve in life and want to help others, and that, you know, my goals are steps to get there, and the values, obviously who I am shapes my behavior and what I, you know, how I do things. And I suppose so making sure, you know, if I have to step back from the noise and have a little moment to sort of restart where I am, then I suppose it's just looking at, you know, am I moving forwards in my plan to get to where I want to be, and am I doing everything aligned to my values, you know, of you know, where I should act and behave in a way that's true to my own values. I think that's the way I look at it. That's why I think I do. Where you, Dr. Gilly?
I think it's like, you know, what would get you more grounded, and I'm not an expert in this. There are people like coaches, and I know there are like programs, and I've never attended one of them, but I know they exist, where the goal is really to train you to heighten your intuitive abilities. And I know it has something to do with openness, like practicing being open, and vulnerable, like a kid, right? Like beginner's mind, like or beginner's eye. You're seeing the world, but like it's kind of like a blank slate, right? You're learning about it with an open mind, non-judgmental, just passive, right? Mindfulness kind of stands where just observing your environment and your internal state and just kind of going with the flow as opposed to trying to exert control. I think a part of it also has to do with being connected with nature. So, go outside and touch grass. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, I think if you're, sitting at a desk all day, like we're doing right now on your computer, then I think you're less likely to be in tune with your intuition because you're not really grounded in the world. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, as far as the grounding aspect, like that's something that can shift the energy for people. I think also something for me that keeps me more grounded or connected to myself, especially when life gets noisy, is like journaling or prayer time or just being alone with my thoughts. Like whether that's going for a walk or something along those lines. But I think too, for me, it's being connected to another human. So like going on a dinner with a friend or having coffee with a friend and just having conversation beyond having conversation with my husband, because that helps kind of drown out the noise, especially when no kids are around, but also it gives you that connectedness to know that life is noisy for a lot of us, probably all of us, and we're not alone in it. So I think that's probably something that can keep me connected to like who I am in that inner compass, if you will, when I have a friend that is like, maybe we should go a different direction with that, right? And they re-steer the ship sometimes when I'm really like, am I crazy? So yeah, I think that's what does it for me. Let's see. Where do you still second guess yourself and why? Apparently, I'm coming up with really thought-provoking questions.
You are. Yeah.
I guess, actually, you were saying before that women tend to be like very in tune with their own emotions and with others' emotions, right? And I think there's a book that includes a lot of information about that, and I actually cite it a lot in my book, but the original book is called The Female Brain by Dr. Luann Brizendine. And one of the lines in there that I quoted in my book was that women have evolved to cry like 4 times more easily than men because men, how do I say this nicely, are not as good at like picking up on emotional cues. And so women basically have to be like, I'm sad, for males to react to them. But then females, the other thing that's interesting is that there's like neuroscience research that shows that when, females understand something about another person, like if they're feeling sad or they're feeling angry, and then they're told contradictory information, like, no, I'm fine, then their brain, like their neurons, like fire wildly. Like it's just like it's like chaos in there because you're just like, but like because it's like we have this spidey sense where and it's not perfect, right? We're human, but and I think it is instinctual where it's like you can just kind of sense, and some women are better at it than others. But generally, they're pretty good at sensing when someone's feeling something. And so for me, the problem arises when that happens. And that in the past led to a lot of conflict in my relationship with my husband, because I would notice that something's wrong. And I would say, like, you look mad or you look upset, like, is something wrong? And he would say, no. And then I would sit there and feel confused. And I'd be like, are you sure? Yeah, it's fine. And I'd be like, you don't sound fine, and I have ADHD, and I think I have like some autistic tendencies too. So I'm just like it really boggles my mind, because it's like, I think over time I've developed this pretty good radar. And so when people tell me I'm wrong, that's what I think, flips things, and that makes me very frustrated and question myself. And so I think, basically, I don't know, in case you're curious, like it just came to a point where we had to work on our communication. And I was like, I'd rather you tell me you're angry and you don't feel like talking about it right now than to say, no, you're wrong, I'm fine. Because that's what makes me more upset, because then I feel confused and I question my ability to determine when someone's feeling a certain way. And I'm a psychologist, like that's what I do for a living for the most part. So yeah, I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but I hope that answers your question.
I've got a question, like hoping following this is, and I think you're probably right, and I agree with what you said, not Gilly. Do you think this is perhaps why, if you look at certain types of work occupations, so for, traditionally men do some and women do others. So for teaching, and find that generally more women in teaching overall, and nursing. It's just, obviously things are changing, but most in certainly in the UK, most teachers are women statistically, and nursing the same, and therapists, predominantly women. And there's some sectors which are mostly men, IT and engineering. Do you think this is because of some of these aspects where if perhaps women have better empathy and better so we say, well, then they'll naturally be driven towards perhaps roles where they
I think mostly I think it's socialized too, like it's like norm, like why would a nurse be different than a doctor? A doctor has to be empathetic too. But I think part of it is socialized, but I do think that, and there's a reason women are drawn to certain professions, because they're just naturally better at, caregiving and, understanding other people, and especially, I don't know, children.
Sure.
So
yeah. Okay. Has there been any comments? Just looking.
Are you sad, or are you feeling sad?
Yeah. Talking about the cat getting upset when I stay up late and she's wanting to lay on top of me. Yeah, cats. I'm not a cat person. I'm a dog person.
I think it is interesting, though. It's funny, actually. So I have a comment on that too. But like, I'm thinking about, like today I was like, I have a guinea pig in my office, like at home. And it's funny because sometimes it's like I talk to her, or I'll like maneuver a certain way, and she's like used to me. It's interesting how you and your pet, even guinea pig, can like get to know like your personality, and they like, I'll talk to her and she's like she talks back to me. And it's just, but if it was our nanny, it wouldn't happen. It's like they know the difference between different people. I just think it's interesting, the relationships you can develop with animals.
No, I've definitely heard, the people say, that the pets are very in tune with their owner's emotion. They can sense it, and and it makes sense to me. Of course, if you got a person with their pet, and they obviously you live together, spend a lot of time together, then I think it's like a person being totally a person. I think a pet, an animal, I think I can totally think it makes sense. I think that emotional connection.
Is there an area, Nick, that you still second guess yourself?
Second guess myself. Got to put on the spot here. I mean, I think I like I said, I instinctively, do it a lot with things, with decisions, with choices, but I'm trying to move towards, using my intuition more, using my instinct more, using avoiding just look at everything and then what's a logical right thing to do. So do I second guess myself? Lots of things. I mean, I think in relationships, I sometimes do it, and decisions around business growth. Yeah, no, definitely lots of areas. But I think habits. Habits. A lot of habits are, of doing things are ingrained over a long period of time, and if you want to change your habits and perhaps have different habits or perhaps more better habits, it's you'll always have those moments where your old habits surface, I think, isn't it? So it's a bit of that situation really.
I was thinking, maybe are there certain types of people who would be more likely to listen to their intuition, or and one thing I read about is that people with ADHD, for example, they're more impulsive, so they're more likely to make risky, or impulsive decisions. And I wonder whether that would also apply to, relying on or listening more to your intuition. If you're more impulsive, it's more of a reflex, right? Like gut response.
It's interesting that, because I was on listening to a podcast the other day, and it was saying, talking about that sort of subject, and there's a few, some very successful entrepreneurs who are on the spectrum, and there's one whose name I can't remember, but it's one of the it's quite a young entrepreneur, and he's I think in his late 20s, early 30s now, and but he's on the British Dragon's Den. I think he got the Sharks Tank in America. So and he was saying how he's got ADHD, and how he's always had that impulsive, a lot of things talk about restless mind, impulsive risk taking. But he said that was what led him to success, because he was always taking risks. Some of them didn't work out, but he was always moving forward by taking risks. He some didn't work out, but a lot did. And he said he would never have had the journey he had and the success he had without risk taking, because it's to be a successful entrepreneur, to be successful in business, you got to it is risky by nature all the way along, and you don't have to have ADHD to do that. But I think it's interesting, he was saying that that it was that sort of aspect of ADHD that he felt impacted, and he was saying led to his success by shaping his behavior, and so I think it's definitely, I think it's an interesting point. I think it's definitely something in that, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So in terms of being an entrepreneur, I think for people with ADHD, like they're more likely probably to go down that path. Sure. But in terms of success, it's hit or miss, because you could have ADHD and make decisions and they could go, it's a risk, sure. So that's why, there's a lot of like job hopping, or, starting a business or having an idea and then discontinuing it. And sometimes it leads to success and sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't try, then you won't know.
That's true. That's true. No, and I think the hardest thing is, I mean, generally is trying, because that's what we do is procrastination. So I think in some ways, the wider thing of making a decision, taking action is the thing that holds people back. I mean, generally, what not generally
Yeah.
most people. So I think it's
I found also like the maintenance too becomes difficult. It's like I see it in myself too, where I get really, really excited about a project or something I'm doing or a new job or whatever. And then it's like 2 years into the thing, I'm just like,
sure.
on to the next one. And like, that's not, appreciated in society. If they look at your resume and they're like, oh my God, why are you hopping around between different jobs every 2 years? And so, if you start like a coaching business, like, and then you get burnt out, like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, and what part of like not trusting that intuition boils down to just fear? Like, we're literally stuck in concrete and feel like we can't move forward because we're afraid. What if it's the wrong decision? What if this fails? And then the voices in our heads and our own worst critics start to be like, nope, you can't do that. Nope, that's a terrible idea. When in reality, yes, our brain is trying to keep us safe, but at the same time, we have to tell that critic to just stuff it and shut up so we can move beyond that. Because otherwise, we're literally staying in this like comfort zone with zero growth. And then you wonder why, or live with regret because you didn't take the chance. You didn't move beyond the fear and like, no, I'm going to give this a shot. And if it doesn't work, great. How can we attempt it a different way? Right. And that's what everybody always compares for, like Einstein. If he would have quit, then what? Right. So it's one of those things of how do you move past the fear to get unstuck and just give it a shot anyway. Whether it's going to work out or it doesn't, you don't know that until you step out and you move, right? Movement is the biggest thing, I think, that keeps us.
I totally agree. I mean, on a personal level, but also I think a wider level, I think there's definitely something there that prehistoric times we lived by instinct. Everything we did was how do you react in situations of time? And I think we've moved. I think we should be more in touch with our instinctive decision making and intuition to an extent. And there's been a lot of great books sort of exploring that about decision makers and the decision making process, and I think there is that lot of fear of making the wrong decision. What is the decision? And there's almost that automatic subconscious thought, when we have to face a decision, and I think it's that one question is what holds us back, and there can be a lot of lost opportunity in that, and it's like that feel the fear and do it anyway. What's the worst going to happen? I think we do that that inner voice, that doubt of well, let's make sure it's the right decision before we do it. I think definitely we've moved to an extent away from that using our intuition, and I think it's I think definitely. I think it's something we should move to try and get back in touch with. I think we have that fear of failing is something that it's a protective thing, but I don't know if it's something that is an empowering thing.
It's also helpful though, right? Like with ADHD, there are no breaks a lot of times, so it's like you just leap, and you can't really, stop to think about things logically. And that's where you see people kind of hopping into, new careers, and that's why it's successful some of the time and other times it's not. But yeah, like for example, for me, like when I decided to start writing and to publish a book, that was a sacrifice because I need time to write the book, and authors don't make a lot of money. So it was a financial sacrifice, but I thought about it in the context of a family. I'm not alone. I have like my husband helping me, and there was a cut, but it was okay, and it was something we had to talk about. It wasn't a solo, decision, and it was an exciting idea, but I had to like, also think about that, aspect of things. And so it happened. It came to fruition because I was able to do it, and I planned it that way. And so I think, yeah, there's value definitely like to listen to your gut, right? My gut was telling me like, now's the time, go write a book. But then, I also have support. I think maybe if I was alone, I would definitely screw up a lot more. But I have, like my husband, he calls me like the president of the house, and he's the family secretary because he does everything else. So yeah, so he grounds me, and we talk through these types of big decisions. And so if you can do it, then that's great, but you need to pause, right? It's like listen to your intuition and take it seriously. Like for example, I work with especially teens on this in therapy a lot. I was actually recently working with someone who there's more than one person actually. There's a bunch of people who think like this. They're just like, that would be impossible. I'm like, would it really be impossible though? Like, let's think about it again. If this is something you really want, maybe you could make it happen. If you wanted to make it happen, what would be the first step? In a crazy other alternate universe, like what would you do, right? To get this done, and then really think about it, take a step back and think about it logically and ask yourself, do I want to do those things? Because if you wanted to, you could, if it did make sense. And so I think it's helpful first to take a step back and to ask yourself, like, is this actually impossible? And then you learn through trial and error through life, like when you do something that's new or different than what you would normally do, and it works out, you're more likely to take a risk again. But I think having that support and first you have that inspiration and take it seriously, like listen to it, but then plan things out.
I guess it's also a thing of the difference between impossible and incredibly hard, because some things may be incredibly hard, and you have to work out, well, it's incredibly hard, that would require a lot of time and effort. I'll have to do all these things to be able to achieve this, whatever it says, writing a book, I'll have to write a book, I'll have to do his extra time outside of work, I'll have to, but it's possible. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly hard. And I suppose sometimes it's, some things are impossible. Even if we're all willing in the world, if how much I want to do it, I can't do that. But some things are incredibly hard, but still achievable. So I think sometimes if we're with decision making, it's, it's just trying to sort of, think, is this impossible? How much I want it, or is this incredibly hard? But I can do this, but it's going to take a lot of.
Yeah. Or sometimes it's not, like, I love that. And sometimes it's not incredibly hard. You're just making it hard in your head.
Well, that's a fair thing.
Well, and it comes to that overthinking, the overanalyzing, but then is it also part of it, again, based on that fear? Is it the fear of judgment? Like if I step out into this, who's going to say what? What are they going to think? Like, again, it boils down to, are you going to let the naysayer speak and be like the critic, which then turns your worst critic on? Or again, are you going to follow your intuition and your gut and be like, no, this is the right path that I'm going down?
Well, I think definitely. I think it's like they say man's greatest fear. Well, man's greatest fear is public speaking. But why is that? It's because get on the stage and worry what people think. Will people listen? Will they laugh? Will they Will they, it's that fear of people, attention on you and people not responding positively. What will people think when you, as that one example, it's like, what will people think when you talk and say something to those people? I think it's, what will people think is one of the most compelling things. I think it's like the book thing, it's a big, when you get a book out there, to an extent, why will people like it? Will they, will they be interested, respect it? Will they respect or will they laugh at it? And it's a big thing to put a book out there because you're putting out potentially to the world, and people have different opinions. So there might be some people love it, there might be some people who think it's a load of rubbish, And I think there's definitely something there. Putting ourselves out there and in any format is always a big thing, isn't it?
I was joking about it actually because one of the main topics of my book is rejection sensitivity.
Oh, an ideal example.
I know, yeah, it's all about rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And this is like exactly what you're describing, right? It's like a risk, and will they love it? Will they hate it?
Yep.
Example.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, we got a few minutes left. Any final thoughts, any final words you want to share today?
I suppose my final thoughts are, I think sometimes in life we can overthink things, and that can hold us back. And I think sometimes taking any action is better than making no action. Making any decision is better than no decision, because at least we're moving forward. I think struggling to make any decision when taking no action, we're just stuck. And not so we were making forward. Just any decision or any action is better than none. That's my final thought.
Yeah, I was gonna say life can feel like a gut punch, but when that happens, you may want to listen to your gut, and also be realistic that sometimes you can get a sense that could be inaccurate, but that doesn't mean that you should dismiss it completely.
And you, Ashley?
For me, I would definitely say, who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for you, or are you doing it to people please? And really evaluate what you're basing the decision that you are in the process of making or might make in the future. What are you basing it on? Is it to people please, or is it something that's going to move your needle forward?
Makes sense. Like it.
Awesome. Well, today's show, make sure you like, subscribe, share. We will be back again next week, right? Yes, it'll be Halloween here in the state. Well, no, yes, Halloween is everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah,
no,
UK too.
It's Halloween here in the States next week. That's all I know. So we'll be back 8 p.m. and we'll be talking about the benefits of outpatient programming interventions. It's the topic that I have anyway on the schedule for next week. And Adam should be back as well. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week, 8 p.m. UK time.
Bye.